refer to my previous employment because I was there 26 years. So it's hard for me to, even after 2 years with Lakes and Bridges, I slip every once in a while. Anyway, I'm Heidi Bishop. I am with Lakes and Bridges Charter School. We are a charter school that just opened last fall. We just completed our first year. We are a charter school. We're the first in South Carolina and only the fourth in the country to offer a free education to children with dyslexia. Or if you're coming from the public school, they refer to it as SLD, a specific learning disability. Or, even privately, they may say specific learning disorder. But it is dyslexia. It is a language-based processing disorder that affects reading, writing, spelling, anything to do with language. So as a result, it permeates into all your other content area classes. And it permeates into life itself. And so we like to say that it's not a disability, and I liked how you all refer to it as an ability, because really dyslexia and most disabilities really are abilities, because it gives, in the case of dyslexia, these are children that think outside of the box. They're adults that think outside of the box. They are our problem solvers. When you think about entrepreneurs, about 35% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. And what they did is they found they couldn't fall under a pre-organized situation. So they created the environment that they worked best in. A lot of your dyslexics have this innate ability to problem solve, to figure out what's going on. So you think about some of these entrepreneurs who have had no formal secondary education at the college level, but they've created these massive corporations. You think about Richard Branson, you think about Steve Jobs, you think about Paul Orfalea, who was Kinko's. Just a lot of our successful people are, dyslexic. So Lakes and Bridges was started because there were a group of 4 women who were educators. They were retired educators, and they just felt that in the public school they were all familiar with dyslexia because they were special ed teachers, resource teachers, and when they retired, they wanted to do something that made this accessible for all children. I was at Camperdown Academy for 26 years. That it has a hefty price tag for tuition. I was also at a school down in Charleston for a year that had a hefty price tag. And then I was at a boarding school on the North Shore of Boston for 4 years that has an incredibly hefty price tag. And so not everybody can afford to pay $20,000 plus a year for tuition. And so, as I'm also a fellow of the Academy of Orton Gillingham Practitioners, and Orton Gillingham is an approach to teaching children with dyslexia. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been doing a lot with public school, district-wide trainings, with Title I schools. When I oversaw the teacher training program at Camperdown, we had a lot of public school teachers who were attending. And then I started branching out nationally and did a lot with Los Angeles Unified School District. I am a native Californian just outside of San Francisco in a little town called Santa Cruz, outside of Santa Cruz. And so I did some stuff with Los Angeles. I jumped on that just to be able to get back to California. And what I saw is, especially in Los Angeles, these were all inner city kids who had absolutely, like most of them were homeless. They just were coming from terrible, terrible backgrounds. And what I saw was these children, because I would observe them through the course of the year, and I went out there 2 or 3 times to train cohorts, and just the progress they made as inner city children that really had no hope in front of them. They already had a trajectory that was pretty much written for them, and to see that they had the ability to change their trajectory, I started realizing that I need to be someplace and be a part of something that makes this kind of education accessible to every child. not just that small percent whose parents can either write the check or have enough resources to pull together to sacrifice to get their child there. And so when these women started talking about this school and what they wanted to do, they were asking for input from me, also from Camperdown Academy and some other private schools, Chandler School here in Greenville, as well as 2 other charter schools in Louisiana and some other schools as well. And so what they did is, I wasn't a part of any of that founding committee, but what they did is they started bringing in other members of the committee, that somebody who was strong in marketing, somebody who was strong in community, because they knew that the school was going to be located in Pickens County. And so they brought different talents to the table to make up their founding committee. And then we got our charter in April. I say we collectively, but they got the charter in April of 2017. I came on board in August of 2017. I did apply for it with some other people, and then they narrowed it down. And my feeling was, I could have stayed at Camperdown and probably would have died in my office one day there and would have been fine, hopefully way down the road. But I just thought, I have to take this opportunity. Even if I don't get the job, I have to apply and at least say I did it and not have any regrets. And then I got the position. And so I spent my first year as the project director taking the charter, putting everything together to get the school up and running. And then transitioned into the principal's position last fall, July 1st. And we successfully completed our first year. We had 115 students last year with waiting lists in every grade. Of the 115 students, 113 are returning. We are expanding to 6th grade. We are a public school. A lot of people feel that charter schools are private schools. We are not private schools, we are public schools. And so what I tell everybody is, you have your public schools, you have your private schools, and a charter is kind of a hybrid. And what makes a charter unique from a traditional public school is we have autonomy to do what we need to do to get the education to these children. We can be a lot more innovative, we can make decisions on the spot, we are not tied into a framework that is given to us. We still have to meet the standards. But like a private school, again, another myth that I always ran into, because I had spent 32 years in private school, is that private schools have these massive budgets and they have unlimited supply of money. The reality is tuition only covers about 80% of the operating costs for a private school. So private school teachers actually get paid significantly less than public school teachers. And that's kind of why I was saying it's a hybrid. We have a budget like a private school, because we get no local funding. And so when people say the charter schools are taking away from the school districts, we're not, because we're not getting any of your local taxpayer money. We only get state funding, which is the same state funding that every other school in the state that's a public school gets. So we have to make up the difference. We are 1st through 5th grade, but we're adding 6th grade this year. We'll add 7th grade, then we'll add 8th grade and finish with kindergarten. And this year we're going to be 150 students. We had our open enrollment back in February and it ended March 15th, and then we did go to lottery because every grade except for 1st grade had more applications than slots available. And so this year, we have, again, a full building. We'll have about 150 students. We have waiting lists in every grade, some of them up to 20, 25 students. We will be opening at full capacity with 1 1st grade, 1 2nd, 1 3rd, 2 4th, a 5th, and 2 6th, because we had such an overwhelming amount of applications in those 4th and 6th grades that we felt compelled to add another class for those. We are currently, and you guys may wonder, why is the school from Pickens County here? We are not a Pickens County school. We are a South Carolina Public Charter School District school, so we are open to every child across the state of South Carolina. So about 38% of our students do come from Greenville County. We have about another 38 that come from Pickens County, and the remainder come from Anderson, Oconee, and Spartanburg districts. We also have had families that moved from other parts of the state, like sold their houses, moved up to the upstate. We have had families from other states move to the upstate to establish residency so their child could attend the school. We have had interest this year from families in North Dakota, Arizona, Colorado, 2 families from Ohio, North Carolina, and then at other parts of the state. This past year we had families relocate from Florida, Georgia, and Indiana, and New York to attend this school. And so when you only have 4 schools in the country that offer this kind of education for free, then you're going to attract those families. And so we do a lot with the workforce readiness and alliances, especially in Anderson County and Pickens County, because what we're also doing is we're bringing in an influx of people who are adding to the economy by purchasing homes, by purchasing goods and everything like that. We are very fortunate that we have a lot of support from the school district Pickens County. I would like to say we've got it from all the other counties that have their children who have chosen to attend our school. I unfortunately can't say that that's true, but Pickens County, on the other hand, has been a huge supporter of our school. And Dr. Danny Merck, who is a very forward-thinking, progressive superintendent, realizes that it only makes sense to sort of collaborate with us because we're going to be putting these kids back into their schools ready and academically ready, and that's only going to help their scores. And so they have embraced us to the point that we are in the process of renovating a building. Because we are a public school, we have to deal with the Department of Ed, and there's a facilities office called the Office of School Facilities, so everything, your playground, everything has to get approved by them. And so it took a long time for our building to finally, the architectural plans to get approved. And by that time, it was going to be too late to get the renovations done to be in our building last August. So the school district, Pickens County, opened their arms and gave us a school. There was a school, Croswell Elementary, that's just about 4 miles from our building. They just happened to have empty classrooms, and they said, come live here for the year. So we have been in Croswell Elementary this past year. We are anticipating to have our phase 1 of our renovations completed so we can get back into our building, whether it's August, whether it's in time for school to start or it's 1 quarter into the school year. We are in a 3-phase renovation for our building because we anticipate by the time we get to kindergarten through 8th grade, we'll be serving about 300 students around the upstate. So, but the reason why we put this focus on dyslexia, there were a couple things that had to happen. We had to change the charter school law for South Carolina, and this is wonderful because it opens up the door for other, you know, I hate to say disabilities, but differences, because really that's what it comes down to. It's either a different way of having to access places, it's a different way of having to learn, it's a different way of having to do things. And so the first thing we had to do was change the charter school law so that we could focus specifically on dyslexia. And so that was, we were told by Senator Bill Cassidy, who represents Louisiana, and his wife started a charter school for dyslexics down there. He said, if you don't get this law amended, then you're going to have to accept every child because you can't discriminate. So we had the charter school law amended. He had said it'll probably take several sessions. It took a few months. It went really fast because there's so much awareness now of dyslexia in this state, and there's so much legislation occurring with dyslexia. And it allowed us to have our focus be children with dyslexia. So if they have any other disability or difference, then they're not, if that's not their primary disability being dyslexia or SLD, then they're not a qualified candidate. They don't meet the criteria. So what this has done though, it's opened up the door for children. We've had a lot of applications for children with autism. We're not designed for autism. We're not trained to work with children with autism. We don't have ABA therapy. We are for dyslexia, and we are an Orton Gillingham school for children with dyslexia. But it has opened the door for a group of parents or educators to start a school that is focused on autism and be able to, have that be your sole purpose. So we've opened this door for so many other groups to have something. There is a school for children with autism. It's an inclusive school, but it's also a private school, so you have to pay tuition for it. So anyway, but we did this because there are, the statistics are that about 15 to 20% of children and adults are dyslexic. And that's a worldwide percentage. So you have a lot of children in your schools, if you're a teacher, who are sitting in your classroom with dyslexia and more than likely undiagnosed because it's a totally invisible difference. I'm dyslexic. You probably wouldn't have known that looking at me at all because there's nothing, it all has to do with the wiring neurologically. It has nothing to do with anything else. And so I brought our brochure. It's not really our brochure. Our brochures are, we have two buildings and we had to clear out the first building to go under renovation, and everything is just in our second building. And I don't know where the box is. It has our really nice brochures in it, so I had to take one and just kind of piecemeal it together. But when you look at the children, you'll have no idea. These are very bright children. Children with dyslexia are average to above average intelligence. They are outside the box thinkers. They are problem solvers. You think about MIT, the majority of the population of MIT, both faculty and students are dyslexic because it's just the way they think. So about 15 to 20% of your children that you encounter in your classroom, at a party, or whatever, are dyslexic. Probably your adults that you work with in your workplace are dyslexic. And what we want to do is we want to create the environment so that they really are moving forward academically, because unfortunately you have to get through 13 years of school from kindergarten to high school to be able to really then embrace what you want to do. The problem is that we have statistics. Do any of you know what the statistic is? It's a South Carolina statistic. It's also a nationwide statistic of how many children are not reading at grade level in 4th grade.
50% or more in South Carolina. I just heard that.
Quite a bit more, actually. 66% of children in South Carolina are not reading at grade level. And a lot of those may be because of dyslexia. It could be what we call dysteachia. It could be all sorts of things. And that's actually the national statistic as well. South Carolina is 50th in the country based on the 2017 reports of test scores and everything like that. I think we might have come up a little bit, but we're not doing a good job for our children with dyslexia in South Carolina, in our public schools. And again, that's why the school district of Pickens County has embraced us, because they know that we can do the job and he's the first to say, we're not doing a good job. And I commend him for that because a lot of superintendents wouldn't say that at all. Another statistic that's kind of a sobering statistic is that 74% of 3rd graders who are not reading at grade level will not meet grade level by 9th grade. And so that, you think about the economy and your workforce and development, when you have this number of children who may or may not be dyslexic coming out of high school and they are not ready to go into the workforce, either out of high school they're not prepared to go into college to develop those skills necessary. That is a lot of why we're doing what we're doing with Lakes and Bridges Charter School. Are there any questions? Because it's almost 1
If
o'clock.
I could say one thing, I actually coach a kid in tennis that goes to your school. He's from Belton. And
Oh, I know.
he and his parents just rave about you guys. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I didn't even realize you guys existed until he kind of told me. I kind of got, you know, pushed into teaching this tennis class. There's about 60 kids in there, and he kind of opened up about the school, and they absolutely love it. So I just want to say that publicly for you
Yeah.
guys.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I owe that family, we call them the Belton crew because there's 6 children in a carpool from
Yeah,
Belton.
he said they carpool, right, yeah.
Yeah, and we do have families that are either coming from Pickens County, or we've got, you know, they may have a 10-minute car ride, but a lot of our families are driving 30-plus minutes. We have one family that's making the drive 78 miles each way, which I didn't know till school was over. I live in Simpsonville, so it's a 35 to 40-minute commute for me each way as well. Yes.
Is any part of your mission to build this school so that it can be duplicated? You got the waiting list.
We
you got
actually
people
already
coming
have.
from all over the place.
Yes, so there is a school that will be opening, a charter school for children with dyslexia in Charleston in the fall of 2020. We're not doing a true replication, otherwise then it would be Lakes and Bridges Charter School, Charleston. I forget what they're calling, maybe the Charleston Dyslexia School, something like that, but they've got a Facebook page. We also have a school in North Carolina, or a group of people, I shouldn't say school, but a group of people in North Carolina who are moving forward, I think, with their charter. We have one, I think this, and the reason why I'm not 100% sure is because when I get those kind of phone calls, I send them to one of our board members who is on the founding committee. But I know we've had a lot of interest from Colorado. We just got a call from a mom in California. We've had interest from Georgia, Minnesota, Wisconsin, quite a few other places that want to replicate what we are doing. And so while there are 3 other schools out there, for whatever reason, maybe the timing was just right with the awareness of dyslexia, we've gotten a lot of local attention, state attention, and national attention. And even Senator Tim Scott sent somebody to our school, and we have had some pretty big name people coming through to tour the school, as well as a lot of press.
So do you think from a South Carolina perspective, like if you were to have a school similar to yours in Charleston and Columbia, you could cover a huge part of the need?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and really there's a couple pockets also beyond those 3 areas. I was president of the South Carolina branch of the International Dyslexia Association for 6 years, and we always saw the pocket, like there's nothing in the Rock Hill area for dyslexics, public or private. At least Charleston and Columbia, just like Greenville, had private school options, but again, that's for such a small population.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you think part of the mission should be enforcing or having the school districts enforce inclusion and have the Barton and Lexia programs really boosted in the school systems? I know I come from Connecticut. I've only been in Greenville just about 3 years, and that's what our special ed departments focused on, Barton and Lexia, and they were very successful with dyslexic students and with different capabilities, and we saw a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of research you've done on that.
Well, I taught in the Northeast for 4 years.
Okay,
And so there is even, and that was back in 1986 to 1990, there's a different mindset in education with dyslexia in the Northeast that you don't see
Right, down
really
there.
anywhere else in the country.
Exactly.
And I would say that's not going to be our mission, that needs to be a legislative action.
Right.
And there is a lot of legislation that is occurring and has occurred and will occur dealing with it. It's a matter of, I do a lot of training throughout the state for Orton Gillingham, and I do some stuff at the Department of Ed with it in the summers. And so I would say, while our statistics look terrible nationwide, education, I mean, everybody knows that, it's always on the news. I would like to think that South Carolina, what it has going for us is that we seem to be ahead of dyslexia in education than other states. So in one way, we're actually a little more progressive. We just need the statistics to catch up with that, and that's going to take a while.
So we have time for one more question, then we're going to break at 1, but I'm sure Heidi can stick around for another couple of minutes to answer any individual questions you want to share.
I just have a question, considering you're thinking about them transitioning back into regular education, do all of the students have a 504 or an IEP while they're at Lakes and Bridges?
The
In
majority
order
of
for
them
that to
do.
happen as they progress through?
The majority of the kids either came to us with an IEP or 504, and when I say majority, 50% or more. And then we have identified more children because they don't have to have a formal diagnosis of dyslexia. Now, if they've had formal testing and it shows that it's something else, then they're not a qualified candidate. But if they haven't had formal testing, we put eyes on every child that applies to the school, and we assess and screen them, and we're looking for characteristics of dyslexia. Because I've done this for 34 years, I'm in my 34th year now, and as a fellow since 2001, then it allows me to know exactly what to be looking for, regardless of what testing measures. And so what we've done is we've identified kids with those characteristics, we accepted them, and now we're seeing we need to get them tested. They get tested, and they are dyslexic or SLD. We have a school psychologist who's contracted. We contract with, and she will use the term dyslexia. And then we've gotten them into IEPs or 504s. And then we've got a couple other kids that we have also identified through the process. So I think we're close to maybe 75% of our kids have an IEP or 504. And we have an amazing special ed coordinator who comes from charter school land.
Yeah,
So,
like the OT and PT, if any of the students need that available there as well too.
yeah, we're required by law to provide that. Those services that, and again, those services that would fall under a child with an SLD, that's what we provide.
Y'all, let's go ahead and break now. So if you